Welcome to the fourth video of Learn C Sharp with NK Sharma from scratch. We have already talked about in this series. We have already talked about how to install IDE and then how to get started with C Sharp, how to install Visual Studio 2019. And then some basic things about C Sharp: syntax, comments, variable, data types, typecasting, user input, operator maths, string, boolean, if, else, switch, while loop, for loop, break, continue, arrays. In the previous videos we also talked about methods, C Sharp methods, functions, parameter overloading. And so before going further, talk about me. I'm Nitesh Sharma, highly interested in learning and sharing .NET knowledge, C Sharp experience, and I'm having six years of experience, and I'm a senior consultant. So, OOPS concepts and C Sharp classes. Before going further, please like, share, and subscribe these videos. It helps me a lot in the YouTube algorithm to promote my videos and rank my videos. Thank you for your support. Thank you. So in this video we will talk about OOPS concepts, and we will relate these concepts with classes. Ultimately, classes are the principal thing in object-oriented programming. Okay, so class is the best thing happened to object-oriented programming. If there weren't classes, we wouldn't have modern programming. So what is class then? So class is a block of code actually, which is encapsulated together and can be used anywhere in your application. We will talk more in detail about it. Let's go. But before that, what is OOPS? So OOPS stand for object oriented programming. We had procedural programming, which is about writing procedures or methods that perform operations on the data, while object oriented programming is about creating objects that contain both data and methods. You understand what I mean? So in C, we used to create a method which used to do something, but in a single block we used to write everything. So in C we used to have a method and method definition and method declaration and method definition. But in OOPS we revolve around an object. We divide the problem into objects. So let's say we are creating an application for restaurant which takes orders from customers, and accordingly customers can select a menu from the restaurant and order that menu. So you need to divide this problem into objects. Let's say menu is one object, customer is one object, and the restaurant. Okay, now your problem is revolving around objects, and now you can divide it and you can develop your application. So OOP is faster and easier to execute. OOP provides clear structure for the programs. OOP helps to keep the C Sharp code dry. Don't repeat yourself, because it increases reusability, makes the code easier to maintain, modify, and debug. Right? OOP makes it possible to create full reusable applications with less code and shorter development time. Okay, so if we divide the application in restaurant, menu, and the customer, then we have divided the problem into three subsections. Now we need to develop these three subsections and if in future we need to change something in these subsections, we can change only that part, and then the rest of the problem, the rest of the solution application won't be affected. If it was procedural programming, then you have to test everything again. Your whole application is changed. That means you need to perform your testing again. Okay, so let's go. What are classes and objects? Okay, that's the main thing actually which happened to object-oriented programming. So class is a type. Let's say we divided the application in three parts. Our restaurant application in, let's say, in menu, customer, and restaurant. Okay, and now, so menu is a class now. When you divide it, you divide around the objects. That means menu is a class now, is a type, menu type. Okay, you can have menu for kids, you can have menu for adults, you can have menu for older people. So what you will do, you will create instance of that menu 3 times. That means you have a single class menu which is a type, but you can have 3 instances of that class as objects. You understand what I mean? So you have a class which is simple, the type menu type, and you can have 3 menu of this type of that class. That means 3 objects. So objects are instance of a class, and class is a type. So in the previous chapter we learned about CSharp is an object-oriented programming language, right? Everything in CSharp is associated with class and objects along with its attributes and methods. In real life, you can have a car as an object. The car has its attributes such as weight and color, and methods such as drive and brake. Okay, so you have, let's say you have a car which has two properties: weight, color, speed as well. So you have 3 properties, and you have methods in the car, which means like drive, brake, take fuel, whatever. So you have these methods in that car, but car can be of different properties. So if the car changes, let's say you have a different color of car, different weight of car, or you can also have a different model. So you have another property is called model. You can have another property is called brand. So you can have a car of BMW, you can have a car of Volvo, Mercedes, and so you have 3 different type of cars. So you can have 3 different objects for that car. So you understand? So we have a type which is car, and using that type car we create 3 instance or 3 objects using that type car. I will explain this in my example. So let's I will discuss this in my example in real life. So we will create a class, we will create an instance of that, we will create multiple objects, we will create multiple classes. Okay, so let's go to our application. Now you see the application is like we are doing everything in the same file. You see here I have a class program which has this method, static method main, and then we have other 2 methods, but we are doing everything in the same class. And that means I'm I'm using the same class again and again. That means in future if I need to change something, I'll have to test this whole class again. So I decided to break my problem into smaller problems. Okay, then first of all I need to clean this application a little bit so that because okay, I cleaned it now, and now let me just console dot write line starting the magic. Okay, because main is my starting point in this application, main function, and this is the function which will call all the other methods. Now what I need to do is, let's take the same problem, car. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to create a class here. So I'll go just like this, add a class, and I can name this class as car. Okay, I added this car now, and I need to specify the access modifier of this class. So I said public, it's a public class. Now I need to specify the properties of this class. So let's say it has a public string color, and same way you have a public string because model. You have another one, public string, and you might have you have a brand. Okay, these are the three properties. So these are the properties of this class. Now I need to have methods of this class. So public let's say start string start car. Okay, let's say this is my start car function. Of course this function will have another things, but we don't want to go in detail how to start a car, blah blah, all that. Let's say when we call this function start car, the car is started, so I return the value started. Okay, and here before this I can perform action to start the car. Okay, so this is my function. So as you can see here, I have properties, I have a car, start car. Now I want to use this class car in my main function here. So let's say car equals to new car. Okay, so what I did, I told the compiler that I want to create an object type car and the name of that variable is car. Okay, right? But that means let's just run it actually, because then only you will understand. Okay, console dot write line and then I want to print the car brand. Okay, right? And then I want to wait for you to close it, otherwise it will close. Console dot read line. Okay, that's our application. Let's go. Right, so you see here I printed starting the magic, and then I created a new instance of that class car, and then I wrote the name of that brand. But I don't have anything here printed. I don't have brand name, and that is simply because I did not initialize my car with proper values. So what I need here is a constructor which initialize my car with proper values. I could also say car dot brand equals to BMW like this, and now I should have a value BMW in the brand because I just inserted the value, right? So I have a BMW here, but I could also initialize the car sending the value here. Let's say BMW, and then model any model, I don't know, and then color black. Okay, that's how I initialize the car, but I don't have any predefined constructor here. So you notice when I didn't pass any value, then I had a constructor, whereas in this class I didn't specify any constructor. I have only one method, start car, but in here it has a default implementation of that constructor car without even initializing. But I need to initialize this method actually. So you can initialize it, generate a constructor in car directly from here. So it will generate a constructor here. I have constructor now, right? But that's not what I wanted, because it just created 3 values. Right? I don't want that, so I want it like brand. This is how I sent, I guess, brand, model, and color. And then I need to say, then I need to initialize these values. Brand equals to brand, model equals to model, and then color equals to color, right? So what I did now, I just initialized my value, my properties, color, model, brand here using the values I passed in this constructor, right? So now in my main method here, I don't need this thing. Done. So now I can directly print car brand. Okay, I need to use interpolation now. Up. Right. I can write brand right, and then I can write color, print color here. I can write model and print model here. Okay, so let's run it now. Let's see what happens. Nice. So you see here, I initialized the car with BMW A and black, and now I have starting the magic. I printed these values. Brand is BMW, color is black, model is A. Perfect, right? So what did we have now? Till now, what did we do? We created a class. We have class members, which are 3 properties of that class, and this method. Okay, so I have in my class, I have 3 properties or fields: color, model, brand. I have a constructor, I have a method start car. So we knew about the constructor. What is constructor actually? A constructor is a special method that is used to initialize the objects. The advantage of a constructor is that it is called when an object of a class is created. It can be used to set initial values for the fields. So I created this constructor, which is the same name as the name of the class. You see, notice here you have the name of the class as car, and the same name is of that function, which is car. And another thing to notice is it does not have any return type. You see here in this function, start car has a return type string, but this does not have a return type because this method or constructor by default returns a type of car. So you have directly an object. So this constructor is used to create an object or instance of this car. Then you have access modifiers. So by now you only saw a method access modifiers as public. You see public everywhere. Public. But you might have a case when you only need to have private methods. You might need a case. Let's say public means it is available publicly to use anywhere. So if I just call this method here, I can access these properties directly in this function, main function. I can just access these properties because these are public. But I might need to have some special properties which are only private to this class, and I don't want anyone to know about them. I might have another function here, it's public string start car, but I might have another function which I need to have in my class car. Let's say optimize fuel. So that means I want to have a function, private function, which is doing some calculation to optimize the fuel, but I don't want anyone to know about it. Let's say out of this class, I don't want anyone to know about this. So if I want to call this function, I cannot call that function from here. I want to restrict people from using it because that function is my magic function. I don't want anyone to know about it. So then I create a private method. That means I create a method with, let's say, private string magic, because its name is magic function. I just named it. You can name it anything you want. So I created a private function, magic function. So here then I will have perform magic, and I don't want anyone to know about this. Return magic performed. So I don't want the world to know about my magic function. That's why I created a magic function as private. So I can use this function. Here I can call magic function like this. But I cannot call this magic function out of this class here. I don't have access to this. Car dot, you see here I have access to property, brand, color, model. I don't have access to the function magic function. I have access to start car. You see, start car. But I don't have access to magic function. That means I can protect my code, my magic. Same way, I need to have, so private code is only accessible within the same class, right? But I might have a situation where I want another class to access it, allow another class to access this method on a condition if it inherit this class car. Okay, so if we will talk about inheritance in a while, but in let's say you have the class, another class which is let's say BMW cars, and that class is inheriting car, then only it can access it. So in that case I will have a function protected. We'll talk about it in a while. I have here three type of access modifiers: public, private, and protected. We will discuss about them in a while, because first, before that, we need to understand other concepts: inheritance, polymorphism, and abstraction, so that we can understand these things. But keep in mind that we have these three type of access modifier, four types actually, sorry: public, private, protected, and one more, internal. Just keep in mind that internal is used for the same library, protected is used for the classes that inherit this class, and private is only for this within this class, and public is for every class. Okay, so that's the only difference. Now let's go to the next one, fields. So we already discussed fields, we discussed object methods, constructors, access modifiers we discussed already, properties. get and set, properties and encapsulation, automatic properties, shorthand, and why encapsulation. So properties, we talked about properties already. What are properties? So these are the properties, right? So we should, before we go further, we should know about what is encapsulation. The meaning of encapsulation is to make sure the sensitive data is hidden from the users. To achieve this, you must declare fields variable as private, provide public get and set methods through properties to access the and update the values of the private fields. So encapsulation is encapsulating in a box. So what we're doing here, we are creating a type of class which is a type. We're creating a type and we encapsulating it in a box, and we are only showing what we want the third-party users to know about it. We are only telling them what we want them to know. Rest we are hiding, and we can perform our actions using those functions, and we can allow, so we can control, we can really control the sensitive information flow, if they can access it or not, using access modifiers, public, private, protected, and internal. And also these fields, we can make these fields, these parameters, these properties as well as private, protected, public, depending on our requirements. So this is what is encapsulation. Now we can also have a let's say initialization of these classes. So we can have a private string color, right? And we can initialize using this property. So this is a field and this is a property, and now we want to initialize this property, our color property, like this. So let's say we have, this is how it is done. Return color, and then set color equals to value. Okay, so this is my property and this is my field, which is only accessible in this class. What I'm doing here is simply initializing my property using this value, right? I'm using this color value here. So when I am using outside this class, I can use this value as a public value, but this is my private value which I will use internally to do some actions. Okay, so I can do the same thing for other two properties. I can also do like this. Get set. I can do like this as well, but this will be little bit little bit complicated to understand at this stage, so let's just skip this. And because yeah, this is a little bit but simply this is called shorthand. So when I write like this, get set, simply this is doing the same thing like this, but without having this field. So this is a C-sharp way of providing shorthand initialization of automatic properties, where you do not have to define the field for the property, and you only have to write get and set inside the property. So this is shorthand. So now we come, why encapsulation? Why do we do that, all this? Because we have better control of the class members, so reduce the possibility of yourself or others to mess up the code. Fields can be made read-only, so you can set the fields. You can only use the get method of the property, and you cannot override the value of this property. So let's say we give the value as public, but we only give the read only, right? We don't want them to write on this. And you increase the security of data. You are flexible. The programmers can change one part of the code without affecting the other parts. So you can just change here something, but that will not affect the whole application. We will learn about it in a while, how. Next thing is inheritance. It is also possible to inherit fields and methods from one class to another. We group the inheritance concepts into two categories, which is derived class, which is a child class, the class that inherits from another class, and then you have a base class, parent, the class being inherited from. So you have a derived class, which is a child class who is inheriting another class, and you have a parent class which is being inherited by the child class or base class, the child class. So base class is the parent class and child class is the derived class or inheriting class. So let's go to our application. So now we have a class called car, and let's say we change this to type vehicle. Okay, so we have a class type vehicle, color relevant in the vehicle, model, brand relevant, and we change this to vehicle. Okay, and here you say start vehicle, okay, everything else remains the same. Now, so we have a class type vehicle. Now we can have different type of classes, different possibilities here. We can have a vehicle type car, we can have a vehicle type motorbike, we can have vehicle type truck, right? But these properties might remain the same in every sense, if it's a car, if it's a motorbike, or if it's a truck. So what we can do is we can reuse this code. Let's just create another class, okay, which is a car. Oh, sorry, because this is already existing one. Let me just rename it from here. Vehicle. Okay. Yes, and it will do the magic. We go here, everything is fine. Okay, now I just need to change this method name. Start vehicle. Okay, now I need to create a class called car. Okay, let me just set it public. Now what I want to do is I want to reuse everything here, right? I want to reuse this class already in my class because I don't want to write everything again. So what I can do is I can just inherit this vehicle, and that is done. There is no argument given that corresponds to the required formal parameter band of vehicle.vehicle string, right? That's an interesting thing to see here. Here you see we have a constructor called vehicle, which is initializing this class, but which needs three parameters to be passed. But here we don't have any parameter to pass. So what we need to do is we can create another constructor without passing any parameter, right? And we can give a default name okay, so we can give like this. And what I did here is you simply see here up. Now I can inherit this because I have a constructor which accepts 0 arguments. Now if I want to use anything from this vehicle, I just need to, let's say, okay, let's use this car property here again. Now we have a vehicle like this, but we can also have same way we can have car. We can change this to vehicle. So what I did, I created a class, an object of vehicle, I created an object of car, and now I need to print this in here using the value of car. Okay, so what I did, simple, right? Created an object of type vehicle and print it, create an object type of car and print it. Let's see what happens. Okay, so you see here for the vehicle it printed brand BMW, color black, model A, and for car it printed brand color model, which is the default value, in here of this constructor, right? So that means car which has nothing in here, but still I have the access to the default values or the properties, whatever constructor I could use from this class vehicle, I have the access to it. I can even call the other accessible methods. You see here I can access the brand, color, I can access internal magic function, I can access model, I can access start vehicle. So you see I can access many things from this class vehicle, right? I can access all this, right? Okay, and now I might have other properties as well. Public string, and I can say name. Boom. I can have a property called name. We are still running. Okay, I can have a property called name, right, of this car. I can add another method in this car, which is public string or public void honk. And console dot write line honk. Okay, so you see here I can add my extra functions here, extra properties in this car class, and I can also inherit vehicle class. So what I'm doing, I can create my own type of car class, but I can still reuse the existing code, right? So I need to define my problem into smaller objects, and this is what I need to think even before starting developing. So I need to break my problems into sub problems, and I need to find which object you can reuse everywhere. So now if I just want to create another class for motorbike, right, I can create another class for motorbike or truck, because trucks sound more vehicles. So I can add one more class, truck, public class truck, and I add a vehicle class here, and that's all. And now I can create another instance of same way I can create another instance of truck. Truck, and I can change it to type truck, right? Boom. So now I have a type truck. Of course this will have its own the same implementation like this, because car and truck both are inheriting the same class vehicle, so the default implementation of this constructor will be the same, so they will have the same values for brand, model and color. But later on in this in here I can change the values of these properties. Okay, but that's waste of little bit time. So okay, let's go to next thing now. So inheritance we understood, right? And now we have a polymorphism. What is polymorphism? Polymorphism means many forms, and it occurs when we have many classes that are related to each other by inheritance. Like we saw in the previous examples for inheritance, we inherited fields and methods from another class. Polymorphism uses those methods to perform different tasks. This allows us to perform a single action in different ways. So we inherited functions from the base class, and now we need to do something with that method. Okay, let's say we already saw overloading in our previous video. Now we are doing overriding. So this vehicle class has a definition for this method is start vehicle, right? Started the vehicle, but we want to to use as the same method. So what we are doing, because we already have this, you see, truck.startVehicle hides inherited member vehicle.startVehicle. You see, so that means we are overriding the existing function. What we are doing, we are overriding, because this method definition already exists in vehicle, but maybe for some reason we need other properties, but we don't need this method. So let's say from vehicle class we need these properties, but maybe we don't need this function. We need our own definition for truck, because maybe truck might need to be started in a different way. Okay, so we want to restarted the truck. Okay, so what I did, I just changed the definition for this function only, which was existing in this one. But now if I use truck class, I should have in here in truck class, when I call truck, let me just console dot write line and I need to use this function here, truck dot start vehicle. Okay, and the same way, if I do the same thing in here, Control C for this one, I change it to car, and same thing here, vehicle, and let's see what happens. Okay, what I did, I called the same function for this one, and for this one. Let's see what happens. So you see here, starting the magic, you see here you have let me just bring it here. Actually, you have brand BMW car blah blah started the vehicle, so this is for the first one. Then you have brand blah blah blah, then you have started the vehicle. But for the last one, for truck, you have started the truck. So for the first two call, for these two call, it called the default definition of this vehicle, and for truck it called the truck definition of this start vehicle function. So we override this function. So that means we are having multiple forms of the same method, which is polymorphism. So you are, what you doing, you are just overriding the existing definitions of the function, existing function. For that purpose, you can also use virtual and override. So here, if you say start vehicle and you say up virtual keyword, you put a virtual keyword here. That means I'm saying this function should be overridden. Then if I go to car class, right, I can override that function, and if I go to this class, I can say public override. Simple. So what I did, I made this function as virtual. That means the classes who are inheriting this class will override this function. If they don't, then don't, but if they want to, they can override this function. And now my truck definition will override the existing definition of vehicle. So that's how we are getting the polymorphism. Next is abstraction. So what we studied till now, we studied encapsulation, we studied inheritance, we studied polymorphism. Now we are going to study abstraction. So we can create abstract classes and abstract methods. So data abstraction is the process of hiding certain details and showing only essential information to the user. Abstraction can be achieved with either abstract classes or inherent interfaces. We will talk about interfaces in the next slide. And abstract keyword is used for classes and methods. So you can create a class as abstract class, or you can create a method as abstract method. So basically, abstract means you are just giving an structure of a class. So let's say we create an abstract class of vehicle, where we just give simple things. We just give basic properties, and we give an abstract method, but we don't do much. So abstract class is same like vehicle, like this class which we were inheriting, but we don't go more in detail. Here I specified this, I had many functions here which had the default definitions and these functions, and I was doing many things here. I could have more functions, I could have more logic here. But what if I don't want to put much logic in this class, because maybe I don't want to put too much logic in here, but I want to do more logic in class car and class trucks, because their logic is more dependent on car, right? You can have a starting method, start car and start truck methods, different methods, right? So you might say, okay, I don't want to do it in a vehicle class, but I want everyone to use the same structure, right? So I created this structure, and I want everyone to follow the same structure for car and truck, so that when you use the same thing in your, let's say in your front end, when you want to display them, it will be really easy for you because you have the same properties, same names, and you can easily display them. You can use same components in the front end as well. So that will ease you, so that you create an abstract class. That means you are binding the developer to use specific definition, specific structure of your class, but you're not giving much definitions, much logic in this class, but you want them to do in this one. So abstract class is same like this class, but you just put abstract here, abstract keyword here. That means this class became abstract. That's all. So you put abstract keyword in front of the class, and in that sense, to access the abstract class, it must be inherited from another class, and then you need to implement those functions. So abstract classes is restricted class that cannot be used to create objects. To access it, it must be inherited from another class, right? So I cannot create an object of this class now. If I put abstract keyword here, then I should not create an object of this class. I cannot call this. You see, I cannot call this. I cannot have a constructor in here. I should not, because abstract class is not full implementation of a class. Then it will be the same like class. That's the idea. The idea is to have only the structure of the class. And same way, if you put a keyword abstract in front of a method, that means, let's say here, if I just put abstract keyword here instead of virtual, and I just save it, you see, vehicle.start vehicle cannot declare a body because it is marked abstract. That means this function cannot have a definition. It can only be defined. So like this, right? So abstract classes are only for the purpose of having it just for structure, just binding everyone to follow the same structure. Next is interfaces. What is interface then? Another way to achieve abstraction in C# is with interfaces. An interface is completely abstract class which can only contain abstract methods and properties with no definition. So abstract class could have a function definition, and it could have properties, but if you want to go more in detail, like little bit further, then you have a single class, type of class interface, which has nothing but just the properties and the function names, but no implementation, nothing. So if you just go back to our, so I need to create an interface here. Need to search here, interface, it's here. I just need to rename it. And keep in mind, we always put I in front of interface, I vehicle, and now in this interface I can have methods void test drive, but You see here, I cannot have a definition for this method. I cannot have like this. I cannot have like this. With CSharp 8, you can have default definition for interface, but that is a little bit further. I have explained this in my another video, which is CSharp 8, and difference about these things. It's a bit higher level. If you are beginner level, then you should not focus on that for a while actually. And then if you understood these math concepts, then you can directly go to my next another video, which is talking about CSharp 8.0. Okay, so I have this, and now if I want to inherit this in this one, in this function, in this class, what it says I need to implement the method test drive. So now I needed to implement the method test drive, this one. That means if I want to bind more structurally my developers to use the same format so that I can follow a structure, and following a structure benefit you a lot in generalizing things, and it helps you a lot. We will talk about this later, because then your application is more structured and you can do a lot of things with it. Okay, in simple sense, my vehicle class implemented this, and I implement other functions as well, and I am inheriting this. But next thing in here is I can add another interface and inherit it by comma, using comma. But if I use two classes, let's say car and truck, let's say car, it is inheriting vehicle, and I also want to inherit truck class. Allow you to have multiple inheritance. That means it does not allow you to have multiple classes to be inherited. Why? Because truck might also have the same definition as vehicle, and then you might have the car class might have problem in understanding which function you are calling. So if I just do like this, and then vehicle and truck is also inheriting vehicle, and truck might have the same definition like vehicle. Let's say truck has a definition for class start vehicle start, and then truck also has a definition for a start, and then in the car class you are confused which function you are calling. So to avoid that confusion, that problem, C# does not simply allow you to have multiple inheritance, but you are allowed to have multiple interfaces in your class. So you could use iVehicle in your class, so you could have multiple inheritance using interfaces. So that can be the main advantages. And why would you use interfaces otherwise? Like abstract classes, interface cannot be used to create object, and interface methods do not have a body. Body is provided by the implementing class. On implementation of an interface, you must override all of its methods. Interfaces can obtain properties and methods but not fields, variables. Interface members are by default abstract and public. An interface cannot contain a constructor. So as we saw already, these were the situations and conditions. Let's go next. Enums. What is enum then? Okay, in our previous example, we had an example about weekdays. So when I was talking about this function, when I was doing this, then I was doing and get name of the day, and I was passing a name of the day as integer like this. But and then I will have to test, go through the switch statement. Oh, if it's 1 then return Sunday, if it's 2 then return Monday, whatever, right? And then I will have to memorize it in my mind. What was the value for Monday, what was the value for Tuesday, what was the value for Wednesday. What I can do is simply I can create an enum which represents this implementation of mine. I'll just do like rename weekdays. Okay, I must do it like this. So it's now I can say Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. Okay, and now I am not worried. Oh yeah, Sunday is already defined. Now I'm not worried about what is the value of Sunday, Monday, and default value you see here, it starts with 0 and value of Saturday is 6. And now I can use this variable here directly in my class here. I can say I want a type of enum and I want type of week days, weekday, and I can say day, and I can go through this day, and then I can remove this day dot. Now I can just say weekdays dot Sunday like this. You see, pretty easy. Now I don't need to remember. What the benefit of this is, now I can follow the same structure everywhere. And I don't have to worry about what was the value I used for Wednesday. Oh, I don't remember. And then you are stuck. You might make mistakes. And like this, you are just binding everyone to follow the same structure, same values for every weekday's name, and that's how you can just use it in your calculations everywhere. And default is Saturday. So easily, right? You don't have to now remember, oh, what was the value for Sunday, what was the value for Monday. And the same way, the same enum can be used somewhere else as well without the developer need to know what was the value of Sunday someone else used. Let's say I developed a class and another developer also developed a class and he is also using this using somewhere in his class to calculate or do something with the weekdays, and I'm also using the same thing. And then he might decide to think, okay, I give Sunday a value of 1 and I might decide to give Sunday a value of 0. Then we have conflicts, we have problems, our application is not following the same structure, you see. So that's why enums are good to use. Okay, and now let's go to the next one. Working with files. Write to a file and read it. In C#, you can directly use files with system.io. There is a class called system.io, and that using that you can directly read from a file and write to a file. Let's just go to our application. Up first we need to call that using system.io. We included this in our system.io. We use this namespace in our application, and now this namespace has a function called file. Using this function we can read file dot write all text by providing blah blah. This is the text you want to send, and then this is the name of the path.txt, and then this is the text. Simply you can write like this to a file, and this thing will be returned to this file. Simple. Same way you can read all text from a specified path, and I will not go more in details about this, but I just wanted you to know that there is a namespace called system.io which exists to do all these functions. So try catch exceptions. You might have exceptions, you might have problems while doing something. So let's say you are developing something, and that means simply when you were reading a file, and maybe that file does not exist, or you just wrote wrong name of that file and that does not exist, then you will have a problem because file is not there and you are trying to read a file. Then you will have a problem. So compiler will throw it does not find that file. That means that problem will be called as exception. Then you need to handle those exceptions, because if you don't handle, then your application is blocked, and it might produce some unwanted results. And then you need to use try and catch. For that you put a try block, and then if any exception occurs, then you handle that exception, and then you can put a finally block to execute ultimate code which needs to be executed in case of exception as well and in normal case as well, and then you can throw that exception so the final user can use it. We will talk about it in other videos. I just wanted you to know there is exception exist, there is a thing called try and catch, and finally which you can use for your application. So thank you for watching. Please like, share and subscribe. Please like this video and share this and subscribe, because if you like this video, this will increase the ranking in YouTube algorithm, and this video will be watched more. If you share it, same will happen. YouTube will like it and I would also like it. And if you subscribe it, thank you. Please stay tuned. I will be putting more videos for C# and getting started with it. Thank you for watching. Thank you. Bye.